So let's talk about this. What if the stock market tanks in the first 5 years? And I would say, first of all, on all of the what ifs today, it's important to focus on controlling what you can control. You can't control whether or not the stock market tanks maybe right after you retire. Maybe you retire in a good market and then suddenly it turns around. You can't control that, but you can control whether or not you're prepared for it. But let's look at a couple of different guys. This is James and Joe, the story of James and Joe that we've shared over the years quite a few times. They have a lot in common. They both worked for the same company. They arrived at their respective retirement dates with exactly the same amount of money inside their 401ks. They both had $500,000. They both withdrew 5% of their balance at retirement from each of their accounts to create an income for each of their families to live on. And the only difference between James and Joe was the year in which they retired. So James is 10 years older than Joe, so that means that James retired in 1966, and Joe retired 10 years later in 1976. Now, with everything else in common, you would think that they might have a comparable experience, but you have to think about, this is the what if the stock market tanks in the first 5 years of retirement? So if that happens, what's the impact? Well, it draws down your portfolio so much that it doesn't have the capacity to come back up. Where if you retire in a different market, and this is, by the way, this is not how we invest. This is the standard, 60-40 stock bond scenario. We invest in such a way so as to negate this risk. But if you do this the way most people do investing for retirement, here would be the results. So James started in 1966 with $500,000. 18 years later, in 1982, James is completely out of money. And Joe starts with $500,000 in 1976. 18 years later for him, in 1992, he has over $1.2 million. Now, let me make the compliance department happy here with a little disclosure. This is a hypothetical example. It's not representative of any specific situation. Your results are obviously going to vary. The hypothetical rates of return are used that are used do not reflect the deduction of fees and charges inherent to investing. Indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Past performance is not indicative of future results. There you go. There's your disclaimer.
Well.
So
nice.
thank you very
nice.
much. Thank you.
Very nice.
So,
and I thought you did well when the book fell off the shelf and
I just kept
right
rolling
on
with
going.
it.
That was-
Yeah.
I don't know what happened
Yeah,
there.
there
Yeah.
was
Got something going on in here.
some little book back
So-
here just
Yeah.
fell off.
So anyway, the point is, you can't control whether you are James or Joe in terms of what the market is going to do, but you can have your portfolio ready for that.
Yeah.
And guys, if you're not withdrawing from the big one pool of money that happens to be down at the time, if you're withdrawing from a slow and steady wins the race portfolio while you have another one that is set aside for later on, that bucket of money has time to recover before you have to get to it.
Want more content like this delivered to your inbox weekly? Visit fastest4.com to learn more.